Good morning. We're in the Maamar Lecha, Amar, Libi, Bakshufonai. It's in this. If you have the actual sefer, it's Maamar Melukotim that we've been using, volume Gimel, volume 3. It's page 8. So here the Rebbe begins with the pasuk that we're saying twice a day in the, after mincha, during mincha, depending on your minhag. Lecha Libi Bakshufonai Espanecha Avaya Avakish. My heart says to me to search for you, search for your face, and I will search for you Hashem. So Rashi on this verse in Tehillim says something very strange, very enigmatic, something very unusual. Bishvilcha, bishlichutcha. And what does Rashi have to add the word bishlichutcha? For your mission. You're asking me to search for you. Okay. But Rashi adds a word, and when Rashi adds a word, it's precise. In other words, Rashi is saying there's something not clear in the verse, and through the word bishlichutcha, it will become clear. So the Rebbe's first question is, what is that? Then Rashi continues, and he says, bimkoimcha, towards the end of the Rashi. It's the third line. In your place, replacing you, God, my heart replaces you, and it tells me to search for you. What does it mean my heart replaces you? Why can't you have the heart and Hashem? Why do you need a replacement for Hashem vis-a-vis the heart to tell you to search for God? These are the questions that the Rebbe asks in the Maamar. And he began to explain to us what the idea of bakosha is. In the English language, the word bakosha is bereft. It's bereft of what we mean in Chazal and in Chassidus. Because bakosha in English is translated as a request. A request does not connote, I really want it, I really need it. No, I request of you. Now, if you want to, do it. You don't want to, don't do it. The request word, the word request, is more lackadaisical. The Rebbe says that according to our Mesaida and our understanding of Pshat, the word bakosha implies two things. Look at the first thing. Yesh, it's on the fifth line. Yesh nei pirushim, towards the end of the line. Ho'echad bakosha utchina shu atfila b'seides gedola. It means to request and to plead a tchina, which is the tefillah with tremendous arousal. I don't know if you know, but there's something called tchinot. Do you know that in some traditions, the women, Friday night, before and during the time that they light Shabbos candles, they say something called chinot, which means prayers. And if you saw the way my grandmother would stand right here and do the chinot, you would melt. She would cry. She would talk. She was so emotional, like she's praying for her family. I mean, it was a very, very powerful few minutes as we entered Shabbos, as we were actually going to shul, the men, and we came down, and she was standing there, and it was a whole ceremony. I mean, and as she got older, and her mind, so it became more emotional. But the point being that tchinot, the whole idea of tchinot, of pleadings, of these supplication prayers, is not just, I'll daven a little bit, I'll pray a little bit, I'll enjoy, and if you answer me, great, if you're not, we'll get you on the rebound. No. Tchinot means I'm convinced that if I pray, and if I daven, and if I beg and plead, no question you're going to answer me. So the Rebbe says that the first idea of bakshu panai, this bakosha, this request, is not a request as we understand it in our language, in the English language. But rather, look at his words. They're so beautiful. Shehatfila b'hisayres gedola. It's a tefillah. It's a prayer with a tremendous arousal. V'hasheni. And the second interpretation of bakosha, he comes up with the word chipush. What does the word chipush mean? Well, we translate it as to search. But it's not the search like when you search for a book in your bookshelf. It's like the search, Yoni, of bedikas chametz, where you're supposed to get down on all four and look under the table and look under the bed and schwitz, and it's a whole ceremony, and it takes a lot out of you. That's a real bedikas chametz. It's chipush, like you're looking for a diamond, or you're looking for that old photo that you remember from years back that was so special to you, and you can't find it, and you turn your house upside down. That's the implication of the word chipush. And the Rebbe says, betircha atzuma. He doesn't just suffice by saying bechipush. Betircha atzuma. This type of bakosha and chipush is betircha atzuma, with great amount of bother and toil and effort. Tircha. Yeah, you got to be bothered. It's uncomfortable. Who wants to be uncomfortable? Now, could you imagine? The Rebbe is saying here that during this month of Elul, Bakshu Fanai, Hashem wants of us to make ourselves uncomfortable in searching for Him. Who wants that? No one wants that. I want to come to an air-conditioned shul. I want to sit on a comfortable chair. And I don't want to have someone, I just came from shul, and someone came and sitting next to me, someone parked himself, and he seemed to have, I don't know if it was a stutter or an OCD. He repeated words over and over, and I'm trying to daven, and it was like, may God give you. And he's switching from English to Hebrew, and it was very interesting, And where did he park himself? Right next to me. There's a whole shul, and he has to park himself next to me. And I'm trying to say the words, and he's going on, repeating the words. Poseach es yodecha, poseach es yodecha, yodecha, yodecha. 7 times yodecha.
Rabbi, it's one good thing about being in Israel now during COVID. We don't have that problem.
You don't have that problem. So anyway, but on the other hand, he was davening. He really was. He really was. He really was davening. I could see he's saying names of his family and praying, and kol hakavod, except just do it a little further away so you don't disturb me. But anyway, the nekuda is that davening is not a time I'm in a comfort zone. Davening is a time I want to knock myself out. That's what davening is. Otherwise, you're just saying words. It's lip service. You can scream Amar Yehi Shmei Rabbah for today and tomorrow, and it's big lip service. So not only are you saying the words Yehi Shmei Rabbah, you're shouting Amar Yehi Shmei Rabbah, and you really believe that you're buying yourself a piece of the Liv Yassin, Oh, am I going to get a big chunk of Liv Yassin for saying Yehi Shmei Rabbah so loud? Torah and Chassidus teach us that it's the inner aspect of the heart that feels, like shattered and torn and has gone through. You come out of davening schwitzing, but it's air conditioned in Esh Kodesh. No one's schwitzing, or they open up those large windows, and some people want them open, some people want them closed. It's a whole to-do, right? But you have a nice table, and you have nice people, and it's large, it's gewaldig. I love davening there. Davening is a personal agenda. Davening is a personal trip. And the trip is such that you have to get into your heart. That's bakosha. Bakshu fanai is not just, I request. And if I don't get it the first time, tomorrow I'll do it again. No, every day you have to feel and think, this is the only day I'm davening. This is part of all what the Rebbe says. Now let's go back into the text. Oh, and the Rebbe, and the part that we ended yesterday, he says, Tefillah is known Hillel as Avodah Shebelev, the service of the heart. Yes, Avodah Shebelev. The Rebbe adds the word betoch halev. It's not enough the service of the heart, it has to be inside your heart. And in Yiddish, I love when he says the Yiddish, because the Yiddish expresses it exactly to the nekuda, to the point. What does it say? In hearts und mit dem Herz. In your heart and with your heart. It's not enough to be in your heart. It has to be done with your heart. And when it's done with your heart, where? In the heart, because you could do something with your heart and in the feet. A dancer who's a gewaltige dancer. Have you ever seen someone come to a chasana? And there's some people that come specially to do a dance for the chasana of Kala. In Crown Heights, we had a Yid, Rabbi Yecheskel Brod. There's a Lubavitcher family, Brod, B-R-O-D. And I recall he would come in to, I don't know if every chasana or many chasanas, for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and what did he do? He was thin and he was athletic, it looks like, and he would make and people would stand around to see how Cheskel Brod dances. It was a feature of the night for the Chassan and Kala. So did he dance with heart? Absolutely. But where was his dancing? In his heart or in his feet? In his feet. Someone is a great pianist, right? So, B'meila, he or she are tremendous on the piano. Wonderful. But it's not betoch halev. It's lev, but not betoch halev. So the Rebbe says here that when you daven, where are you davening? This is another point that's very important. Where are you davening? Are you davening in your cup, in your head, or are you davening in your heart? Avodah Shebalev has a location. The location is in the lev. So until your lev is motivated, inspired, and ignited, you really haven't yet fully davened. And this is why we daven every day. Because we all know that this is a constant avodah, and we're waiting and hoping and working towards one day, one tefillah. We should daven b'toich halev bilev. Let's continue now. He says now, and then the final point that he made yesterday, what type of davening are we talking about? Well, if you go into a Karlin, Stolin, Pinsk shul, whether it's in Meir Shorim or in Borough Park on 16th Avenue or wherever else, maybe you have one in Bet Shemesh, a lot of screaming, a lot of breathing, a lot of Amen. From deep down, they give it out. You go into Vishnitz, there's a lot of saying of the words with nigun. Ashrei yoshvei veisecho. So you hear in the words, the meaning of the words through the nigun. You go to Breslev, there's clapping, interesting clapping coming out for the right and the left at various times. Or like my wife and I once gave a Breslev chassid in Berkeley or Marin County, I forget where it was, a ride, and we had a van, and all of a sudden, as I'm driving, he rises from his chair and he starts clapping in the middle of the van. So I said to him, what are you doing? He says, Reb Nachman says, while you're traveling, you should talk to Hashem and clap. Okay? Go ahead, clap. Various forms of Avodas Hashem. They're all good, they're all holy. What's the Chabad approach to this idea of tefillah? Says the Rebbe here in a few short words. He says it here, it's through, I want to get those words exactly. It's about 6-7 lines down. The Chabad ethos of tefillah is to come to an understanding, to come to a comprehension that godliness is all there is. Havana, Hila, you see those words? Havana tova a good understanding, bahasoga elikis, in a godly way. This is the content of the davening, the way the Balatanya and Chabad Hasidim see it, and Chabad Hasidus sees it. To understand Einoid Milvadoi. How can I say Einoid Milvadoi if there's a big universe out there? How can I say that the supernatural forces of God control nature when we see nature dominates? How can I understand the creation ex nihilo yesh mi'ayin? God is something that's here, that's not here. When is he here? When is he not here? When does he take a walk? When does he go to sleep? Does he go to sleep? What does it mean to go to sleep? And this is all Chabad Chochmah Bina Das thinking. The Rebbe says this should be part of your tefillah. Because in order to feel for someone or something, or in our case, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you need to understand him. And if you don't understand him, you could chuckle and scream from today to tomorrow. You don't have him. You don't understand him. I'm not saying that those that understand him have a deeper kesher with HaKadosh Baruch Hu than those that just use emotions. I'm not going in that direction. What I am saying is that the importance of Havana v'hasoga, the Rebbe says here, is the content of the tefillah. Let's continue now. The Hinei Ksiv were about 10 lines from the beginning of the Maamar. The last 3 words on the line, after the apostrophe, the comma. I'm sorry. The Hinei Ksiv, it's written, Umipsori echzelaka. From my flesh I will see godliness. Yehodam, man, Hinei mehachibur gufay v'nafshi urei leikus. How can man, and how does man see Hashem? From the combination of the body and the soul. In other words, when we combine, Moshe, our body and our soul together, then we can have what we call Ria Be'elokus, seeing of God. V'tam amru. So the question is, why does it say Yoni umibsari echzelaka? What's the Hebrew word, Yonason, for seeing? Re'eh, Re'iyah, Roeh. So it should say Umipsari Roeh Eloka. From my flesh I see God. Here we have the Aramaic word for Re'iyah. So the Rebbe says, Hari'ikir hu ha-nefesh v'lo haguf. Although the combination of body and soul makes it possible to see God, nevertheless, the primary aspect of a Jew is the soul and not the body. Yes?
Isn't that mean gaze? Gazing?
Well, we translate it as gazing, but, it's another form of roeh. You know what I'm saying? It's really a synonym for roeh, but we translate it in English as gazing to make the difference. Let's see his thought, how he develops it. The Adam will call him guf and nefesh. Man is combined of body and soul. The guf Adam nikra besar Adam. One's body is called the flesh of man. V'nishmas Adam, and the soul of man nikra nefesh Adam is called the soul of man. Uvischabrusam yachdov, and when they join together, nikra Adam, they're called Adam, man. So when he says, from my flesh I will see godliness, hare hakavana hu al haguf shu basara Adam. Who is going to see godliness, Moshe? The soul or the body? The soul always sees Hashem. It's not a chidush, it's not a novelty. The chidush is, the novelty is that the guf, the body, will see God. That's why he uses the word echzer. Let's look further. Look inside. He says, "Hare hakavonahu al haguf shu b'sara adam." When we say umibsari, from my flesh, echzer, I will see Eloka, I will see godliness. What we mean is that even the coarse body, the corporeal body, will see God. Although the truth is, what is primary to man? It is soul, nefesh. So the question is, if the soul is the primary aspect of man, of a yid, why does it say referring to the body perceiving God? So he says, what we're talking about here is a tangible muchash, a tangible view that's similar to the actual eyes seeing God. We see each other now on the computer. We see each other. We've seen each other in person. When we talk about seeing Hashem, the ultimate experience is, it's as though you actually see God. Of course, it says, no one can see God's pneumius. So we understand. We're talking metaphorically speaking. That the body, the goof, has become so transformed and so electrified for godliness. And God, it's as though the goof, the body, the flesh itself, sees God. This is why it says, Umipsari echzeleka. This is the answer to the question. I want to make sure we understand the answer. Yoni. If it would have said, Umipsari roa elaka, so then it would refer to the soul seeing God. What's the big deal? We know, of course, the soul seeing God. The soul comes from God. The soul is in, its comfort zone is Hashem, and big deal. There's no chiddush. The chiddush is umipsari echze elaka. This goof, this body, that's normally coarse and corporeal, that is not interested in godliness, but through the soul transforming it and making it a godly being, it too sees God. So why does it say echze, not roeh? Because echze is like the backside of roeh. So the chiddush is that even the backside sees God. Even the issue that is antithetical to God, i.e. the body, it too says, I want more godliness. I like you, God. Oh, you all of a sudden appreciate the ruchnius. Let's continue. The Rebbe says, if we're talking already about re'iyah, seeing, there are two types of re'iyah. One is re'iyah sichlis, intellectual seeing. Not seeing actually with your eyes, but the mind's eye. You've heard of that. The mind's eye. That's what we call here re'iyah sichlis, where the mind, the seichel, understands it so well that we attribute seeing to the mind. Re'iyah sichlis. Ukemaimer, and as it says in Pirkei Avos, Ezeu chochem harayas anoiled. Who is a chochem? Who is wise? Someone who sees the future, the noiled. Next, we're on page 9. V'hainu, top of the first line. V'hainu sheroye besichlo yas hadover hanoiled b'terem ivoldoi. He sees with his mind's eye what the future will bring. And this perception, hiberius ein haseichel, it is with the seeing of the mind, the mind's kind of eye, ein haseichel, shehi re'iyah ruchnius. This is what we call a spiritual seeing. That's one kind of re'iyah. Number 2, Yonason, Vasheni, Shenis, Hiri'iyah Gashmius. It's a Gashmius seeing. You see it with your eyes. Shiri'iyah Muchoshis. So remember this word over here. There is Riyah Ruchnius, Moshe, underline it, and there's Ria Muchashis, from the word Muchash, tangible, actual. You could feel it, you could see it. It's Muchash. It's not just in my mind's eye, it's Muchash. Says the Rebbe.
Is that not the word that Yaakov uses in his dialogue with Rivka about going to Yitzchak?
What word?
My father will Mukhshani, something like that, in the Torah?
Trying to remember.
My father will feel me and know that I'm...
that's the word Mimashesh. Mimashesh. It's not Muchash. No, it's a different word.
But it's similar. Okay, that's interesting. It's not the same word. It's similar, though.
Well, it doesn't have a ches. You could say maybe that the implication is similar, but one is the
Mashesh.
Mashesh.
Okay.
It's two different words.
Okay.
But
thanks.
Yeah, right. What I'm saying is the content of both, there's a similarity, but the words are two different words.
Right.
So now he says, and these two types of re'iyah, these two types of seeing, both, Jonas, whether it's the re'iyah ruchnis, Yoni, or the re'iyah muchashis, they both require a combination of soul with body, right? Because if you don't have a combination of soul and body working together, you don't have any of these types, right? Whether it's tangible, whether it's through the intellect, it requires a joining of both. And just as when we talk about the actual tangible seeing, it's when man's soul descends below into a body and invests itself beguf, gashmi. And you're alive with physical life. So too in Ikain, it's also true for the intellectual seeing. It's only possible when man's soul descends below, and invests itself in a physical body, and when you are alive physically. You aren't having Ria Ruchnius Moshe before birth and after birth. It's an experience that you could have and should have while you're alive, because it requires both soul and body. And just as in the intellectual seeing, it's because of the perspective of the soul. Shehi hamaskelis bechol minei seichel zvara. How do you like the language there? He. What does he mean? It. What is it, Moshe, that makes you, when you draw, it's your seichel, thinking about a certain idea, and once you understand and have that mind's eye picture of what you want to communicate, then you use your hand to draw that beautiful picture. So without the nefesh that's maskeles, that comprehends what you wish to communicate, your picture will be meaningless even if you're a great artist. Someone will look at that picture and say, yeah, this person has a great pen, a great, but what's the message? Sometimes, whether it's art, whether it's writing, whether it's another type of, activity, it's bereft of soul. It's not even soul. I mean soul in the sense of intellect. What are you trying to say over here? What is this, babble? Babble? You're babbling and babbling. In Yiddish, there's a word, pleidering. Have you ever heard of the word pleidering? Pleidering means to babble. What are you saying? And sometimes in yeshiva, you understand, and if you remember, if someone went on and on and on, you would say, you're a pleiderzak. You're a sack full of babble. Like, what's your message? What, are you just talking for the sake of talking? Have you ever seen, sometimes you sit down, and someone comes over and starts talking. What is your point? The Rebbe says that in order for the Riyah, any type of Riyah, perception, whether it be intellectual perception or tangible perception that you see, requires a seichel to guide it, to drive it. Otherwise, it has no purpose. I remember, I want to share this with everyone, especially Moshe, who is an artist. In my house, and I have it over here, you can't see it from the video, but there's a piece of art that the famous Hasidic artist Zalman Kleiman drew of 10 Hasidim sitting in a wagon, and a horse is taking them, and they're going upwards. And the name of this piece of art is called Fun Chaslavich Kain Lubavitch. Let me tell you the history, because very few people know the history. In the Minsk region, in Belarus, there was a little dinky village called Chaslavich. And you know who was a rav in that little city, that little village and town? Reb Moshe Soloveitchik, the father of Rabbi Yasha Ber Soloveitchik. He was appointed, I think for 7 or 8 years, he was a rabbi in that city. And there's a lot of history about that. I wrote about it in my book on Rav and Rebbe. There's a tradition that the Soloveitchiks had, that when the Alter Rebbe, here's the picture. You see it? I don't know if you can see it. No, you can't see it. When the Alter Rebbe was running away from Napoleon, the people of Chaslavich hid him and saved him, and because of that, the Alter Rebbe gave them a promise that from then on, the rabbis of the city will be mostly Litvaks. Although there were many Hasidim, but the Rav will be a Litvak. Now, Rabbi Yeshua Munshain already, the late great researcher and scholar, says the story can't be true because Minsk is at the other end of Liadi, where the Alter Rebbe was running away from. But I'm not going to go into that discussion. But be that as it may, you have this picture. They're sitting in a wagon, and they're traveling from Chaslavich to Lubavitch. Chaslavich, the Rebbe Rashab calls one of the 3 corners. It seems like there were 3 cities that were very misnagdish. Talking about 180, 200 years ago. And it wasn't like a haven for Chassidim. But there were Chassidim, a group, So the picture depicts the following. The Lubavitcher Chassidim that were kind of stuck in Chaslavich with the Misnagdim, they're going to their Rebbe. So you see them in a wagon, and the horse is taking them, and the picture is called Fun Chaslavich Kain Lubavitch. And there's an actual song that they would sing. Fun Chaslavich Kain Lubavitch Vos darf menaich Fun Chaslavich Kain Lubavitch Vos zolchtaich, which means, why am I coming from Chaslavich to Lubavitch? They're traveling. The Hasidim are traveling. And the answer is they're going to their Rebbe. They're Hasidim. They have a Rebbe in Lubavitch. So yes, all year round they live in Chaslavich surrounded by Misnagdim. And once a year they go to Lubavitch. So this is a classical piece of art that many Lubavitchers have in their homes. So when I got married, my chaverim, they gave me this as a gift, and that was kind of a gift that we gave to each of our friends, was this picture, because it depicts the notion of Chabad, you know. And I had it hanging on my wall in Marin County, and my great uncle, Mendel Futterfass, came for a visit, like I've told you before. And I noticed in the middle of the visit, he walks over to the wall where the picture is hanging, and he starts staring at the picture, and he turns to me and he says in his good old-fashioned Russian Yiddish, "Is Franz Hen Menschen? Is Franz a minion? Is there a minion in the picture?" And I never even thought about it. I said, "What are you talking about?" So he says, "Do a minion?" I said, "We're a minion." I didn't have a minion. It was he, Rabbi Reichik, and myself davening together in the morning. We didn't have a minion. So he points to the picture. So I look at the picture and I start counting. And guess what? There were 10 people in the wagon saying L'chaim, because they're going to the Rebbe. And then he turns to me after he says that and he says, the Baal Shem Tov, whenever he traveled with a minion. This is what Mendel Futterfass told me that day. So Moshe, here is a beautiful piece of art that my friends gave me, and I gave them as a gift, celebrating our going on to a next stage, going on in life. But I never thought about how many people are in the picture. What are they doing? Everything I've told you, I learned since I got the picture. The history of the picture and what Mendel told me, right? It was all later. What am I showing you? That it's the same piece of art that you can have hanging in your living room for years. But if the seichel is not there, the picture is a picture. A nice picture, fine, a nice piece of art. What makes the picture alive? It's the seichel. Another example of this, is that clear, the story and how it applies to us? Yes? Another example is that Rebbe Rashab went to a museum either in Paris or somewhere once on his travels. And he went into the beautiful museum, the Met, whatever. And he was standing there, and he made a comment, something's wrong with this piece of art. He said, "Rebbe, this is worth thousands of rubles, or whatever, the francs, whatever. It's so expensive." The Rebbe says, "Yeah, but usually when a bird rests itself on a leaf of a tree, what happens, Moshe, to the leaf?" Exactly, Yonason. It bends. The pressure of the bird makes the leaf bend. And in this piece of art, the Rebbe said, the leaf is not bent while a bird rests on it. This, said the Rebbe Rashab, shows the artist did not understand what he was doing.
He didn't anticipate the consequences of his action.
Exactly. But what's the nakuda? What's the point? When you draw, again, and Moshe is the expert, but the way I understand it, that when you draw and you want something to be real, that the person seeing this in 50 years will say, "I'm there." By looking at this art, it's like, I'm there. What does art do? And again, I'm not the artist, you are. But to me, a good piece of art is supposed to draw you in as though you're in the experience. Right? You're in the experience. So the Rebbe Rashab said, you want me to be in the experience, you want me to be standing right next to a tree with a leaf and a bird on it, then the leaf should be bent down. Because that's the way it's in real life. And what you're depicting is not real. It's baloney. And so it's missing in the art. We go back to the Maamar, and we finish the day with this, that the Re'iyah, and this is the point we want to get at, that the re'iyah, that seeing something, is real when you understand it. If you don't understand it, it's missing in the seeing something. And this answers another very important thing. Some people say, well, there were people who came to the Rebbe or to another tzaddik, and they saw him, and they went on. Yeah, because they had no understanding. So there were people who, just by seeing his blue eyes, or his face, or smile, or being in his presence, or other tzaddikim, they were turned on. Fine, they have a sensitivity. But is it possible to be there and not be turned on? The answer is yes. And if anyone tells you no, they're liars and they're fools. Because you're missing the Havana. What are you looking at? Who are you looking at? Right? So the Havana, the Seichel, makes the Re'iyah, makes what I see, whether it be intellectual perception or physical, actual perception, very real. Chevra, have a great day. Think about what we learned.
Rabbi,
Yes.
Rabbi, I wanted to wish everybody today's my Hebrew birthday. So
why didn't you tell us? I'm sure you're 20. I'm sure you're 25 years old, Yoni. So Hashem should give
You can drink now.
Yoni, you should be gesund. You should have only Yiddish, Chassidish, and Nachas. Your father should have a Refuah Shalema. And your daughter should grow up to be real Yirei Hashem and bring you and your wife tremendous Yiddish, Chassidish, and Nachas. And we should only have good simchas to share with each other. And you should continue being an inspiration for people in the Karlbach Shul and all over. They should see you. They say, "I want to be like Yoini." Hashem will help. Sei gesund. Take care. Bye.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. Bye.
Thanks, guys.